Okay, so trying to make a song and we are having problems because there is a technical issue. Now the technical issue is the way the Elektron handles program change and also the lack of a song mode within the Digitone. So we've overcome that by using the song mode within the MPC. Great. Now we can configure the tracks here. We've got many tracks. We can have many tracks. We only need these few tracks. We've got our MIDI tracks with our MIDI notes. Great. Independent. And we've also got a track 16 which we've assigned purely for program change. Now we've got our first 16 patterns set up with the program change on the separate channel from the rest. All fine. Channel 16 for program change. And we're using the other channels. We're only using a handful of MIDI tracks. So the problem is, there's a couple of problems actually. It's just the way that the Digitone handles MIDI. Now basically, if you go into the MIDI config settings of the Digitone and turn on our clock receive, yeah. Now the reason we'd want to do that is because we still want this sequencer, even though our notes are coming from the MPC via MIDI to trigger the Digitone, a little bit like a sound, like a sound expander. Essentially, we still want the sequencer of the Digitone, even though it's not playing notes of the internal synthesizer. We want that to stay in sync because it does have 4 tracks of its own that we might want to use for MIDI to come out of the MIDI out of the Digitone to say another rack mount at a later time, which would make sense because then we can use the tricks on board of the Digitone to trigger another piece of equipment. Now the problem is, I'll try and demonstrate, when we press, so we've got a string on track 14. So we'll start off on, if we go next sequence 2, so we're on pattern 2 and then we're going to switch to pattern 1. Right, so at the minute it's playing, that's fine. It's going to get to the end of this sequence and then switch automatically to pattern number 1, right? You can see here there are no notes to be triggered yet. Right, now there are notes to be triggered. You can see that 1, the program changes behind, and now it's just switched. So the sequencer is running the wrong length of patterns. That's one issue. Now you can fix that issue by making this the same length of patterns as this, but when the pattern switches, this is always the pattern after. So this triggers on the first beat of the very first beat, but this picks it up and it misses that beat, and then it will switch the pattern lengths one after, which is why you're hearing the wrong sound, because the sound is assigned to the pattern one measure behind where it's supposed to be. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that, right, even though we're on the correct one now, look, so we're going to do next sequence, pattern 1. It's already on pattern 1, so no program change needs to occur. We're going to test to see what happens. Right, now I'm triggering on note 1, and you can see if I switch to main to see our notes, I'm going to zoom right in so you can see it. There we go, we're going to zoom in. It's this note here, and I've made it purposely loud so you should be able to hear it, right? But look, Right, I'm going to re-trigger on that note, and you can't hear that note. You can hear the second note come in, which is this note. Listen. See? This first note does not trigger because when you press play, the sequencer on the Elektron, for some weird reason, stops the sound of the very first note, because maybe there's a fraction of a second while the sequencer starts, that basically the external MIDI trigger to it is not listened to. Now I can demonstrate to fix this. See this note on the screen. I'm going to use my nudge function with the time correct to off, so it's going to be the smallest amounts, and I'm going to basically just grab that one note there and then nudge it forward. So I'm going to go a couple of ticks forward. Right, it's not enough, a few more. Right, now we can hear it, right? So when I press play, you can definitely hear that first note now, because I've allowed a few milliseconds for this to sort itself out. So that is another problem on top of another problem. So we've got two problems. And if I switch that back to the beginning, so the note is right at the beginning now. Look, you can't hear it. But if I go into the Digitone and do MIDI config, sync, clock receive, and switch that off, that's it, off. So this is no longer, this Digitone now can no longer play its internal sequencer because it's not synced to MIDI. However, the program changes still work, and also the weird thing is that first note still does not sound, even though this is not, it's not playing. See what I mean? So I'm going to nudge that forward again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not enough. 6. 6 forward, and it sounds weird. Doesn't seem to like a re-trigger there either. Look, picks it up like that, but it won't pick it up like this. So is that an MPC thing, or is that the Digitone? You have to look into that further. But at the end of the day, what does work in this fashion is when we do, we'll go back to this pattern 2. We'll look at the system over here. It says it's on pattern 2, although we're not using the pattern, but the sounds are tied to the pattern for tracks 1 to 4. So we've sacrificed their internal sequencing on this completely now, so at least our program change can work. So if we press play, we're going to do it from the top. Let's press play. Our track is playing, and what we're waiting for to hear is the string. Let's put this on grid view. So switch it to pattern 1. I'm going to look at grid view, you'll see the notes. That's it, and you heard the first note trigger on the first beat of the bar, and the program change worked. So I'm pleased with that, but what we're lacking is, and let's just check that works, is that nudge to the beginning. So that's not at the beginning. Let's nudge it to the beginning. That's definitely at the beginning. We'll go track pattern number 2, play, auto switch to section number 1, and then to see that happen, we're going to go to grid, and we'll see the notes appear. Will it? So we've got sound number 2. So when the pattern changes, we want pattern number 1. No. Did you hear that first note? I didn't. I don't think I heard that first note. Let's try it again. Let's just listen a bit more clearly. So I'm going to do pattern 2 is playing. It's on pattern 2 over there. You can already see it. Switch to pattern 1. This could be song switching it, by the way, and then go to grid so we can see it. I'm going to turn this right up. Can we hear note number 1? I think the answer is no. Are you with me? So now I'm going to nudge that forward. 1, 2. Switch pattern by mistake. Nudge that forward by so many ticks. I think it was 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Check it triggers. Definitely triggers now, right? We're going to do next sequence. We're going to do pattern 2 again, and then we're going to do play. Switch to pattern number 1, which has got the program change. Switch to grid view. When it changes, we should certainly hear that first note. So I think there's a... Let's see. Yeah, you should certainly hear that first note now, and I've turned it up so we can definitely hear that. So that works. Now, knowing that works like this, does it work with the MIDI turned back on? Sync, clock receive on. Seeing as we got the problem there, we might as well try and get our MIDI tracks from this sequencer back again. I'll have to suss out whether it's actually the MPC not sending the first note or whether it's this not receiving it. And I'll use a different module in a minute. I've got some rack mounts I can use. Right, I've got a feeling it's the Elektron hardware itself. So let's go to the track. We'll sequence number 2. Press play. Right, so we got the MIDI clock on. Let's help it get into the correct pattern. That's it, just switched then. I think that's to do with the length of the pattern, like I say. Right, so we'll start from the beginning. Let's press off on that one. So start, switch to pattern 1. We'll look at grid view, and you should be able to see it. But will the first note trigger? So we're in pattern 2. We're waiting for pattern 1. Is pattern 1 gonna... No. So wrong sound. And then pattern 1. So with there's something we're fighting against here. It's a bit tricky. So I think to get round this, really what we need to do is go on to pattern number 2. I think whatever we do, it's still going to be a problem. I think it's always going to switch to pattern after. So if you put pattern... Yeah, I mean, we're stuck here. So it's one way or another, you need to sacrifice something. I don't think really you can synchronize the switching of program change. Ideally, the only way to do it is with with the sequencer disabled, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't see a way of doing it. So so let's just try one last thing. We've got 24 bars. Maybe I should have done the demo on something easier, like 8 bars or 4 bars, but yeah. Problem is the Digitone has the step lengths can be different. This one can have like a varied step length. This one has got a fixed step length, really. It's in like 4 bars, and you can squeeze 8 bars by putting the function page scale down to half. Yeah, and then you get 8 bars. Although you'll lose you're losing? You're losing resolution on the sequencer. Yeah. So I don't know. Get stuck on that, but we'll try and get this thing working as we want to try and make a song at some point. Anyway, cheers, Elektron. If you're hearing this, definitely look into the first note issue. I'm not sure if that is. We're going to try it with a different module and see if it is this that's not hearing itself for the first few ticks or not.